All right, Stephen Censky, American Soybean Association CEO. Let's talk about the most current issue at hand, and that's last night, President Biden's State of the Union address. A brief mention on agriculture, but with this administration so focused on renewable diesel, so focused on really reducing the reliance upon oil, did he talk much about renewable diesel?
Yeah, unfortunately, no. And we do think that that's probably a missed opportunity. We would have liked to have seen the president talk more about that, about, given the situation that's happening worldwide, given with the Russia-Ukraine situation and what a big exporter Russia is of energy, given the administration's focus on climate and reducing, doing all that we can to reduce the impacts of climate change and to address that in a meaningful way, we have ready-made solutions to address both of those, and that's through increasing opportunities for renewable biofuels to compete and to provide incentives and to create that space. We think it's both good for national security and we think it's also good for the environment.
Well, speaking of that, we've seen some major announcements lately from oil companies who are continuing to invest in some of these renewable diesel locations. Timing, though, Mr. Censky, that's been a little blurry. Some analysts thinking maybe we're not going to see this ramp up until 2023, 2024, even 2025. But from your standpoint, when do you think we will really see these new plants come online and be fully functional?
Well, it is going to be a few years for some of the greenfield plants that are being announced that have to be built. That's going to take a little bit of time, and that's going to take, at least 2 years probably for the construction of a new plant and to bring it online. And so we're pushing out there. Maybe not all of the plants that have been announced will actually be built as well. I mean, the market situations changes, and so not all of those will be built. But we do think it's overall great news. We've seen the announcements that have been made for renewable diesel plants that have been announced. We've also seen, and we're excited about this, really a lot of announcements on new crushing facilities as well. Some of those are in partnership, in joint ventures with some of the major oil companies where that's taking place. But we are looking at, in the next couple of years, at least a 20% expansion of soybean crush capacity here in the United States. And that's great news. Not only is it great news to improve the local basis for farmers. It provides, more oil on the market here domestically, and that's good for both the food industry as well as renewable diesel. But it also makes our protein meal more accessible and more competitive for our livestock producers, and that's good news as well. And with consumers concerned about rising meat prices and the impacts there, doing what we can to supply more meal on the domestic market should actually help and be good news for both our livestock customers as well as for consumers.
Now, we don't know exactly where acreage is going to set this year, but let's say we have around 90 million acres of soybeans this year. Let's just say that's what the number comes in at. Mr. Censky, do we have enough soybean acres to meet the projected demand?
I think we will, and the market is sending the signals. I mean, right now, of course, it was starting to really send signals before the Russia-Ukraine crisis that we needed to increase soybean acres. The corn-soybean ratio was creeping up in favor of soybeans. Of course, with high fertilizer prices, that might impact some of the farmers' decisions. And so I think we will see more soybeans. Having Ukraine and some of the impacts there as a major, corn exporter, not only wheat, but also as a corn exporter, around 16%, I think it is, of corn exports came out of Ukraine. That's going to put pressure on, we've seen the prices jump up for both corn and soybeans in recent days. So that's going to maybe impact that some. But overall, I think we will see an expansion of soy acres this year. And we'll just hope for good weather. We've had, of course, the incredible shrinking South American crop, which is putting on more demand of why we need more soybean acres and a great production year here in the United States.
Well, that's domestic demand. But as we look at kind of things and how this crisis is unfortunately playing out in Ukraine, looking at the drought in South America, I mean, it seems like right now we are seeing a realignment of world trade. Do you see that as a positive for the American soybean farmer?
Well, I think it's great news for U.S. agriculture overall. I think it's great news for U.S. soybean farmers about, again, the reliability of the United States as an export supplier. And that's something that, really cannot be overemphasized. I mean, we have the ability to produce, we have the rule of law here in the United States. We have contractual terms that can be met. And then, of course, we have a very, overall a dependable export infrastructure that we can depend on. And of course, we're going to be making some tremendous investments in that infrastructure as well, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure package that has passed. And so all of that, we think, really positions U.S. agriculture very well to be competitive, not only in the short term, but especially over the medium and long terms.
Well, infrastructure definitely a positive, something that bipartisan legislation, something the administration celebrated last night. But looking at trade and that realignment, so from infrastructure to trade to this, hope that renewable diesel is definitely on the horizon. What are ASA's priorities this year?
Well, they fall into three buckets. One of them, of course, is the farm economy and how we can support farmers there. Another one is expanding markets. And then the third is just on the movement and making sure we have access to both the domestic and international markets. On the farm economy, one of the big things that we've been very concerned about and we want to make sure is that farmers have the tools that they need and the inputs that they need in order to produce a good crop. And, some of that can be addressed through some of the supply chain challenges that we're having. We've been urging the administration to really be active and proactive in addressing those issues. But also we've been very concerned about making sure that the regulatory decisions that are made by government agencies, and really we're talking a lot about the EPA here, is science-based, and they're not taking tools out of farmers' hands. We've been concerned about some of the restrictions that, really couldn't come at a worse time. We were very concerned that the EPA might take action to take some of those tools available to farmers away. And, as we face these supply chain challenges, that was our message to EPA. You cannot be making changes at this point in the growing season to take these tools away when already the price of herbicides is in short supply. They've doubled, tripled from what they were last year. You add that to the fertilizer price increases, that we want to make sure that they're not taking tools away.
Follow up on that real quick, because as you look at EPA and some of these regulations, the uncertainty about some of these chemistries, there is concern that these farmers are going to have fewer tools in their toolbox for weed control specifically. So one, are some of these decisions that EPA is rolling out, are these science-based? And two, what can be done at this point to make sure that these tools are available for farmers for years to come?
Yeah, one of the things that we have done, and we do have concerns there, and the American Soybean Association, as the association representing soybean farmers, we've had to become, regrettably, but we're ready to meet the challenge. We've had to become very active, playing in the judicial branch as well. We've been very active, as you know, for a lot of years in both the legislative and the regulatory branches of government, the executive branch, but increasingly we need to, and as we've gone to court to challenge EPA on the decisions that they've made on dicamba, most recently on chlorpyrifos, of taking away a tool there, despite their own career scientists that found that there are uses of that pesticide, that insecticide, that are safe. And soybeans is one of the crop uses that is safe. And so we've had to go to court, and we're challenging the EPA and saying you need to follow the science and follow the law, and not take these tools away from farmers and not be driven by, frankly, what might be, public opinion or non-scientific evidence.
Last question, when it comes to trade, and you mentioned expanding markets. This year, due to the drought in South America, it seems like we're getting some returning customers due to the, just availability issues this year, which is great for U.S. farmers. But really, what markets do you think that really we should dive into and try to expand, when it seems like right now, at least, trade is not a top priority for this administration?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, we continue to encourage the administration to strike new trade agreements, and stress to the administration the importance of trade to not only U.S. agriculture overall, but especially to the soybean industry. I mean, we're exporting over 50% of the crop that we produce, and so we depend on expanding markets. And while, we are, we've gone through, we've recovered, and China's been buying a significant amount of U.S. soybeans. They're the largest importer of soybeans in the world. We want to maintain that market. We don't want to get into a retaliatory situation. We've been very active in working on developing a lot of new markets, and we've seen, our exports to Mexico increase, to the Middle East increase, to Northern Africa, to Southeast Asia, are all increasing. And so we really think it's important that we continue to work to try and as we have, to diversify our markets, and so that we're not as dependent on China, although that's hard to do when they import more than the rest of the world combined.
All right. So for farmers right now who are navigating these supply chain issues, yes, prices have been positive as of late, but input costs have been skyrocketing. Just worried about some of these EPA regulations that either are here today or possibly coming down the pipe. What do you want soybean farmers to know right now?
I want soybean farmers to know, and I think that's really points to the importance of why they need to continue to support, if they're already a member of their state soybean association and the American Soybean Association, because it is us that is actually challenging the EPA in court, trying to tell them that you need to follow your own science, and they need to follow the law. It is ASA that's working with the administration and Congress to address supply chain challenges. It is the American Soybean Association that's working with Congress and the administration on the need to expand foreign markets and address market access issues. And so those are the things that we do. That's why trade associations exist, and it is to serve our members. And, we are addressing the real issues that are affecting the profitability of soybean farmers every day.